Chapter 4. When Jovani stepped out of his black limousine, he glided behind a man he had been watching for 2 days. Jovani, quiet, ordinary, except for his extraordinary good looks, wearing dark clothing, went unnoticed. It was late, and the women's dorms were full with young women readying themselves for bed. Some walked around with only towels after a shower. Some were bare-breasted with nothing on but panties, not aware that they could be seen at a distance because of open curtains, open blinds, and binoculars clutched tightly in the hands of a vile predator. Jovani stood firm and silent behind the man, looking down at him, then saying, "Why are you standing near the women's dorms looking in the window?" His voice like a knife. The man became stiff with fear of his discovery as he turned with a jerk of his body. His eyes wide, his mouth opened with no sound coming from it. His expression surprise and then intense as he glared at Jovani. He was a short, balding man in his late 40s with a protruding belly, but to Jovani, he wasn't a man who appeared to have children or a wife. A wife would inquire about his whereabouts, because Jovani had seen him on more than one occasion, wandering through different neighborhoods after 10 p.m. Connor had discovered that he was divorced, and he had regularly beaten his wife, at least that's what the police report said. Finally getting his courage, the man said, "What's it to you?" His voice shaky at first and then it grew bold. "If you must know, I'm checking on my daughter. She was supposed to be in the dorm room, but she isn't there." He turned to walk away. Jovani discovered in his drives through and walks through different areas, good and bad, that there was this kind all over the city. Opportunistic predators, and he should know, because he had been one of them. "Would you care for a ride somewhere?" Jovani asked, his voice low and less threatening. He glanced up at Jovani. "No. Just a ride to the subway." Predators have a false sense of their abilities, Jovani thought. They are crafty and like to deceive others. They seem to think that they can spot their own. But Jovani appeared to be one of the good guys. Not like him. Not cold and fearless. Not driven by a habit, a desire for killing. After looking Jovani over from his head to his feet, the man determined that Jovani was harmless, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was a strangeness to him that he couldn't figure out. Connor, stepping out of the limo dressed in his dark suit and white shirt, didn't meet the man's eyes. He opened the door to the limo, and the balding man entered. "You have some set up here," he said, after he slid in next to the right window. He stared out at the building through the tinted window, and let out a sigh. "Would you like something to drink?" "Don't mind if I do," the man said, as Jovani picked up the decanter containing the liquor and handing him the glass, then poured him half a glass until the man waved that it was enough. "Ice?" "I don't take my liquor with ice." He drank all of the scotch and then he began talking. "I like little girls," he said. "You have a daughter, I would think you would like little girls," Jovani added. "I like to do things to them," he said, reaching for another drink, after Jovani conveniently poured it for him. The man looked up at Jovani with both raised eyebrows and shot a smile that was almost a wink. Did he sense the other about Jovani? The strangeness that made them more alike than before. "I don't understand what you mean," Jovani said, his voice low. And then Jovani's attention was drawn away from the conversation as they passed the maze bar. It was then he heard a faint muffled cry. Jovani hit a button and said, "Connor, stop. I have to get out. Take this man to the subway and meet me back." "Are you sure?" "Very sure." Connor stopped the limo. Jovani glanced over at the man. His head lay lolled to one side, resting on the window. He had passed out from the liquor. "Do you mind if I—" Jovani ignored Connor because something or someone was calling to him. He had to see if the woman was in distress, and he didn't know why he did. He never thought of himself as an angel of mercy. He was the night. A demon of the night, cold and heartless. He had never stopped being that. He just didn't want to be a slave to the blood of men. He had to find another form of feeding, and he was determined to try. But because of his nature and the desire to hunt man for his food, he had to continue stalking men who prey on his own kind. To Jovani's mind, that is what made them so despicable. He knew he had to kill to live, but he thought these predators had a choice. They weren't killing for food to live. They were killing for the pleasure of the kill. These men weren't hunting women and men because they had to feed on their blood, they were hunting them because they enjoyed it. Jovani never enjoyed what he had to do to exist. And if he didn't find a way to extricate himself from drinking human blood, then he would walk into the sunlight and commit suicide because he couldn't do this any longer. He couldn't justify his existence. He was unhappy and had nothing and no one to share his life with. Jovani strolled into the alley near the maze bar. He saw a young woman being imprisoned by two men. He knew what they had on their minds. They were predators, and they were going to rape the young woman and then do away with the body, and he knew where they would stash the body after they defiled her. It would be in the large garbage bin setting visibly in the alleyway. They didn't hear him as he approached them. They didn't hear him until he asked them to give the woman to him. If they had recognized him for what he was and what he tried to hide for so many years, then he may have let them live, or maybe not. When he killed one and the other disappeared, he wasn't worried. He would be back. Maybe not today, but sometime in the future, when the other man thought everything was over and done with. All Jovani thought about was the woman in his arms. He was attracted to her, like he had never been to another woman alive or dead. He took in her youthful fresh scent and he smelled her. The sour smell of liquor and food on her breath didn't mask the sweet smell of her youth and beauty. He couldn't smell anything but her warm, tantalizing blood. She was having her cycle, and the smell of her blood was too intoxicating for him.